Happy Tua's Day, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between, to your favorite show discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. My name is Moose, your host, and today I am absolutely amped to talk about this Sunday's matchup versus the Rams, who just beat down a tough defense with the Bears and smothered their limited offense as well. Nick Foles ain't looking as good these days, although he always holds a special place in our heart for beating down the Pats. How should the Dolphins attack the Rams on both offense and defense? And of course, we're going to talk about what some realistic expectations are. Yes, I said realistic expectations, considering a lot of the stuff people are talking about on social media and what a lot of fans are sort of anticipating from the youngster. As always, we'll also take a quick look at the latest stories that were published over at PhinsPod.com. Let's dive in.
Dolphins rookie quarterback getting his first start, and his welcome to the NFL moment is going to be number 99 Aaron Donald and that defense for the Rams on Sunday. What are realistic expectations, Kyle, for Tua in this matchup? Because it's kind of unfair how high the expectations are.
I like the words unfair and realistic. Let's just stay in our shoes here, okay? I think he's going to have one of the best debuts of all time. Yes! I'm in. This is a big week for our friend Fred Siegel at Freezing Cold Takes, because everyone's going to say Tua's going to do this, Tua's not going to do that. Fine. I think Tua's going to be spectacular. I've said it before. I think if he had not gotten hurt, he'd be on the Cincinnati Bengals right now and would have gone the number one pick. I think we forget the talent.
So just getting started, looking forward, to Sunday, let's take a quick look and analyze, Miami's specific matchup with the Rams. So firstly, it's important to remember that the Rams just played last night, Monday night. So today, on Tuesday, on Tua's Day, they're going to be resting. And Miami's been resting since last Sunday. So Miami's definitely going to have the physical advantage. Also, they're at home. So the Rams will be traveling on a short week to Miami, who's going to be meeting them after a week and a half of not only physical rest, but also mental preparation. And frankly, just looking at the two teams, even after, the win from the Rams last night, the Dolphins match up favorably to what the Rams identify as offensively. And I know that sounds a little Homer-esque, like I'm just a fan here. But let me try to get into it a little bit because, just because I'm saying that the team matches up well, it does not mean that I expect the Rams to be held down entirely, or that the Dolphins are necessarily going to just, run over them like they've done the last 2 weeks against the 49ers and the Jets. But the couple things to remember here, one is that Brian Flores has shown that he knows how to sort of combat Sean McVay, specifically in the Super Bowl, where, look, I was rooting for the Rams hard, but I didn't really know Flores, was going to be as good as he was, and he held that number one offense that season to just 3 points in the Super Bowl and made him look silly. So he's shown that he knows, what he needs to do there. And the Dolphins physically are a tough matchup too. They have some of the defensive players there. So, just looking at how the game is being played right now, the NFL has been evolving over the last, probably 15 years, but really ramped up probably within the last 5 to 7 years. Penalties are just helping the offense, making the game feel really like a 7-on-7 tournament, which is creating sort of a need for extremely skilled edge players. So, corners, people who can match up in the secondary, and receivers, so in the offense specifically, having dynamic playmakers on the outside who create space and can get open is huge in today's NFL, just because of how easy it is to get away with pass interference calls offensively. It's very beneficial to have guys who can make space because defenders can't grab onto them 10 yards down the field or do anything at all. So that's definitely helped the offensive side of the ball. And defensively, in order to combat that, you have to have corners and a secondary which can cover at a high level, so have very good cover skills, as well as be a cohesive unit that doesn't have a lot of, just brain farts out there. And like we saw sort of in Seattle and similarly earlier in the season, where the Dolphins sometimes just looked lost. And a lot of teams at the start of the season were, because they didn't have the practice time for the secondary, which is built on communication and understanding where your help is, knowing when you're supposed to let a guy go and sort of pick up the next guy. There's a lot going on. It moves very fast. So in order to play defense in the modern NFL, your secondary needs to be up to par. And there is still one way to guarantee a win, despite this 7-on-7 style that the NFL is kind of going to, which is also why we're seeing a lot of polished quarterbacks coming right out of college. One we hope to see on Sunday, but there's still that one classic way that pretty much guarantees a win, and it's the toughest part of the game, and that's to run the ball consistently and all game long. And if a team is able to do that and control the tempo and the clock and the pace of the game, they're more likely than not to win. Just think back to the Super Bowl, that same Super Bowl between the Pats and the Rams. I really don't want to, but the Patriots defense, like we mentioned, led by Brian Flores, smothered the attack presented by Sean McVay and his new school offense. New school at the time. They've really stripped down a lot of what they do and have really simplified it for Jared Goff, which has helped them kind of regain that momentum that they had a couple years ago following that season last year where they really did struggle following that Super Bowl loss. So the keys for the Dolphins to pull this win out, they need to control the line of scrimmage and set the edge. Similar to the 49ers, the Rams do a lot of counters. They try to do a lot of, not trickery in their play calls specifically, but with a lot of motions, trying to sort of redirect the defense, have linebackers hold still, trying to see, what the plays, what play develops in front of them. And that, split second of hesitation allows a crease to open up for the playmakers on the Rams offensive side. So essentially we want to make the Rams one-dimensional and force them to just have to throw the ball. So essentially control the edge. We don't want them going around the ends, running off tackle. We want to keep the interior of the defense strong, where they feel like if they're running the ball, a 3-yard run is good for them. A 3.5-yard run is good for them because they're struggling sort of breaking those 8 to 15-yard runs, getting to the second level. So if Miami's able to do that and force Jared Goff to, go right at the Dolphins secondary, I do think with Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, I really do feel comfortable, with their, our matchups there as well. And it's important that, those linebackers on the outside, Kyle Van Noy, Shaq Lawson, Jerome Baker in the middle, that they stay home, that they read the play properly and they don't, overcommit to anything, allowing the Rams to, get a big chunk play. So there's going to be a huge emphasis, definitely with eye discipline, staying in your run fits and just focusing on your core responsibilities each and every rep. And if the game is in Goff's hands and he's not getting any help from his running game, I really do think Miami has a good shot to win. Jared Goff is a really accurate passer. He's kind of the last of that breed of a pure pocket passer. A lot of the quarterbacks being taken now don't really fit that mold. Even, a Sam Darnold has far more athleticism than Jared Goff, and Sam Darnold, was probably one of the least athletic to come out. So Jared Goff, he is limited. If you put pressure in his face, he's going to struggle. He's going to fade, and if he doesn't have a running game to help him, then that's something that Miami can absolutely take advantage of. On the flip side, Chan Gailey is going to want to make the game easier for Tua. So offensively speaking now, and that's obvious. It's clear that the Dolphins are going to want to make things easier for Tua, but what does that mean? So that means getting him moving and feeling the game out. So the first drive or two will likely be scripted, and they've probably been working on those plays for the last 2 weeks, but that's a good thing. So Miami's likely going to lean heavily on Myles Gaskin, in short passing game, as well as a lot of handoffs to him, and Breida will most likely see some action as well, and you'll likely see a lot of 2-back sets, Chandler Cox back there, Patrick Laird back there. Think back to his first pass attempt against the Jets where he had 2 running backs back there with them. That'll be to help protect Tua, just have a safety valve, a running back staying back there to pick up a blitzer or pick up someone who kind of leaks in, and if the protection holds up, can that running back can run out and try to run for a quick route in case nothing's open further down the field. But I do expect to see the ball out of his hands pretty quick, attacking the defense both horizontally and then taking occasional shots vertically, rather than sort of the matchup-based offense that Miami was running with Fitz. And so, going on to that, I do think the Dolphins are going to attack the middle of the field more with Tua. As we talked about Fitz's style of play, there was a lot of timing and trust between him and his receivers where he would kind of just throw to a spot. And although, Tua will be throwing to spots, he's gonna understand conceptually what they're trying to do, I think at a deeper level going forward, and because of his arm talent. Because with Fitz, there was sort of a cap to how much you could kind of throw it downfield with him, and the further along the season we got, the weaker his arm most likely was going to get. And in his 16 years, you can just look at it. He'll start strong and sort of fade. And last year, you can argue, well, he got stronger as the year progressed. I would rebut that he didn't play as much at the start of the year. Josh Rosen was playing as well, so his arm did get that rest time. And also, a lot of teams, really took the Dolphins lightly towards the end, and who can fault them, frankly? So a lot of those wins were the Dolphins kind of coming out and punching opponents in the mouth when they least expected it. So, for Tua and the Dolphins offense come Sunday, expect far more dump-offs. So guys like Jakeem Grant, Matt Breida, they're going to become a lot bigger factors in the offense. The team's going to try to establish the run as well, but the Rams have arguably the best player in the NFL. That's Aaron Donald, and he's going to just, be in the interior the entire game, wreaking havoc. Miami would be smart to double him pretty much on every single play. He can wreck your drive in an instant. You have to give him his due respect. You could be moving the ball downfield. You've gotten 3 or 4 first downs. You right outside of field goal territory, and then boom, he 8-yard sack. He just obliterates the guard or center or whatever dual combo block that they attempted to throw at him, and that's something you just have to be ready for. There's going to be things that we can't even really blame the rookie Solomon Kindley for. We can't blame Eric Flowers for, or Ted Karras, because they're going against one of the best players in the NFL, arguably over the last decade or so. So if you're not going to double team him, then run away from him. Just stay away from Aaron Donald and try to get him out and force the rest of the Rams defense to really step up. The other player that the Rams do have, who is also a premier player, is Jalen Ramsey. They traded for him a couple years ago from the Jaguars for a first-round pick, and he's fit in very well there. But don't expect Tua to shy away from him. So I do think the Dolphins aren't going to be trying to split the field, with skill players on the front side of the field and Donald, and the back side with Ramsey. Miami would be smart to try to keep that defense honest and not sort of have them shade up or go to a certain part of the field. And we really do want the Dolphins to take shots at Ramsey. Now, that might lead to a mistake or two, because I highly doubt that Tua is going to have ever experienced, even in the SEC, a corner with the read and react skills and natural ability that Jalen Ramsey possesses. He's just a freak physically, and as a corner, he's exactly what you would want. Lengthy, fast, quick, great makeup speed, a dog in terms of how he gets in your head and is aggressive and will hit you hard. So he's the type of corner that, one, I'm excited to see how Preston Williams does up against him and Devontae Parker, but Tua should also, take some shots, keep the defense honest. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that. If the Dolphins were able to establish a running game early, that'd be obviously great, but it'll most likely be in an outside zone style scheme, avoiding that interior like we discussed, as well as focusing on that passing attack quickly, quick shots mixed in with occasional deep passes to Preston and Devontae when the coverage does dictate it. So pretty much we want to be running outside the tackle. We want to sort of do zone read runs, allowing for the running back to sort of see what's happening in front of him and not just sort of try to pound the ball right through the middle of the offensive line. Rather try to find that hole. Maybe it is between the guard and tackle. Maybe they did do a good job at kicking Aaron Donald down, or just run it around and try to collect 2 to 4 yards. Just keep the defense honest. But if they're able to do that and Tua's able to hit on a few big plays down the field, then they have a really good shot at starting Tua 1-0 and getting this era going in a great direction. And talking about those realistic expectations for Tua, it's a success, if he doesn't turn the ball over. That's how I'm going to deem this. I would rather see him play overly timid his first game back, rather than him go gung-ho out there, think he can make all these throws and fit it in windows. He's likely going to get better as the game progresses and as it slows down for him. So if he's taking these shots and things like that, he's going to need that adjustment. I'd rather him sort of build up to what he can do rather than vice versa. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with that. I know some people would rather a young quarterback go in there and make a lot of mistakes early. I think it's better to limit those mistakes and sort of build on top of that rather than vice versa, because I think confidence is very important for young quarterbacks. After we all went through what we went through with Ryan Tannehill, I think we know that. It's important, though. Of course, Tua is far better of a prospect, a better player than Ryan Tannehill, and hopefully that, not right now, obviously, based on what we're seeing Tannehill do in Tennessee, but definitely as a rookie. But it doesn't matter. These are kids. Tua's 21, 22 years old. He has probably some of the most pressure in the NFL, even compared to some of the elite players in the league. And if he doesn't perform, he's going to get eaten, and that's in his head. So, and that will get loud. And, I think he does a good job of keeping it out of, his focus. He's not letting it sort of trip him up or anything like that. But if he struggles, if they, give the ball up a few times, people will start talking, there will be murmurs about fits, interview questions will start getting there. The locker room might start saying some stuff. So, it's important that they keep Tua on a good plan of how they want him to grow. So if he goes in there, manages the game, makes a few impressive throws, I will be absolutely thrilled. And then from there, we'd want to see growth. If he goes in, makes a couple mistakes, that's also okay, of course, but you just don't want to see any crippling or mental errors that are just, you throw your hands up in the air and say, what was that? Now, we don't really see that often from Tua, especially back in his college film. But, he does need time to settle in. He hasn't been on a football field with live bullets since his injury, last year. And there's a mental aspect to that as well. It'll be normal if he's a little jittery in the pocket. He looked a little jittery on that pass to Jakeem Grant. But again, that was his first live action in a long, long time. So let him get a couple hits in there. Let him get a few knockdowns. And I think he'll start, settling in and getting into the rhythm of the game. And, we're all really excited. That's important to know. I mean, I can't wait for Twitter on Sunday around noon, 12:30, 12:45. We're all definitely excited, but we're not seeing a finished product, this Sunday. Remember that. This is just the start. So whatever we see, good or bad, he can and will improve from that. All right, let's take a quick look at some of the stories that were published over on PhinsPod.com. So one of the things we talked about this week and some of the guys wrote over there was the emergence of Adam Shaheen. Remember, the Dolphins acquired Shaheen, I believe, for a conditional 6th-round pick from the Chicago Bears, who entering the season had a litany of tight ends. He was initially a 3rd-round pick, if my memory recalls correctly, out of Ashland, and he was pegged coming out of college as being a raw but really high-end, talented hybrid tight end. So essentially what that means is, he's from a small school, he's bigger, faster, stronger than everyone around him, and he made plays that were eye-popping. He was running by the secondaries at these D2 schools. He was bigger. He was able to go over the top. He kind of looked a little like a Gronk or a Jimmy Graham. That's what you aspired. You hoped for him to be down the line, and he really wasn't able to do anything in Chicago, which is why it's kind of surprising to see him come in and kind of carve out a little role for himself in Miami. Chicago, if you talk to fans of the Bears, if you sort of look at what was being said during the trade, fans were just happy to get something for him. He really was injury prone. He struggled to stay healthy while with the Bears. And so he never was really able to become what they hoped when they took him. So in their eyes, he's a bust, but Miami might have gotten someone who really just needed time and an offense that really maximized, his skill set. Because we saw a glimpse of what he's capable of, over the last couple of weeks. He's a dynamic, red zone player. He's able to go down the seam and make a huge play. We saw that against the Jets where he went right down the seam and Fitz hit him and he almost scored a touchdown on that play. He's an asset. In the red zone, I look forward to seeing more sets with him and Gesicki lined up. Him sort of being online and Gesicki being on his hip. With Tua making quick reads, trying to manipulate the middle of the field. Having 2 big defenders, Preston on the outside. It'll allow the red zone to kind of increase in size in a vertical aspect. He'll have more room to throw it, in terms of height. So, hopefully we're able to see Shaheen sort of begin to overtake Durham Smythe, who, as much as I like in terms of his being a nice piece and being a good role player for the team and definitely can come in if something happens, I would rather Shaheen sort of take those reps because I feel like can do everything that Smythe can do from a physical standpoint. It's just that Smythe has been in the offense a bit longer and is able to sort of know what those calls are. So, we'll see what happens with Shaheen, but if you want to read a bit more about that, feel free to go over to the PhinsPod.com and check that out. And then the other thing discussed this week was this past, Sunday, the fruitful bye weekend that the Dolphins managed to get despite not even playing. So as fans, we're clearly aware that, we're in the thick of things right now, and there's a bunch of teams we have to look out for, but the Patriots got walloped by the San Francisco 49ers, the same San Francisco 49ers that were walloped by the Dolphins. So I was cackling like a hyena. I was laughing so hard. I hadn't seen that before. I had not seen a Bill Belichick coach team look inept. And that's what they looked inept. They looked like they didn't want to show up. They didn't want to play. And honestly, I have always been a believer that the Patriots dynasty over the last 20 years was a result of Bill Belichick having an excellent game plan, coaching his guys up to do exactly what they need to week in, week out, and Tom Brady managing the game and not making any mistakes. And over time, Brady got to stay in that offense, got to develop, it within a system, so he knew where to put the ball before the snap even occurred. And Bill was creating great game plans, and that's all it was. I kind of gave more credit to Bill and felt that if the Patriots had Aaron Rodgers for the last 20 years, they'd have 12 Super Bowls. But over the last few weeks, my mind's starting to shift a little bit. I hate to say that I want to give Brady a little credit, but seeing what the Patriots are without sort of the mystique that number 12 would bring to them, it's really nice to see as a Dolphins fan. I just feel like no one's really threatened. It's been 2 weeks. They've lost back-to-back in Gillette Stadium against two not great opponents. I mean, Miami will be playing the Broncos later, so we'll see, where they stand against us. But the 49ers did not look, and again, it's pretty much the same team that we played. I mean, Jimmy had just come off injury, but I mean, he's a seasoned quarterback. I wouldn't expect that to be such a huge factor. 2 weeks later, where he's playing a lot better against the Patriots, I think it says more about New England. So I really think that Week 17 game where Ryan Fitzpatrick threw that touchdown to Mike Gesicki, I really do think that was the end of the Patriots dynasty. The cracks were there earlier on between Bill and Tom, years, going back, back to the Eagles Super Bowl with contract disputes and the drafting of Garoppolo and sort of how that was handled and Bill's clear affinity for Garoppolo over Brady. So there was a clear, I think we'll learn more about that as time passes about how it ended. But all I know is as a Dolphins fan, I'm just freaking happy that it did. So that's great. That was great. The Buffalo Bills, they managed to beat the Jets, although it's always great to see the Jets, lose. It also sucks to see the Bills win. They won 18-10, which is kind of the silver lining out of this as a Dolphins fan. The Bills did not look good. The Jets, as we witnessed, are an atrocious team. They got Darnold back, which is huge, but that's huge from being like a definite 0-16 team to like probably 1-15, 2-14 huge. So not the hugest. I like Darnold. I really do. I think he's another example of a guy Gase has ruined and sort of being in a really shit franchise has ruined. I do think if he goes somewhere else, if they're able to get Lawrence and he kind of gets to restart his career in a place like Indianapolis or, go to a place like Jacksonville, something like that, I do think he could, kind of restart his career a little bit, kind of have like a little bit of a Drew Brees, situation there because he's a very talented quarterback. We've seen it with our own eyes. I feel like he just makes mistakes because he's in a horrible run team. And so, but regardless, he was there and they were winning against the Bills. The Bills did not look good. They did not look like a legitimate contending, AFC dominant team. Now, I'm not saying Miami does either, but if people were talking about the Bills being there towards the end in the AFC, then I have no idea why the Dolphins can't. Frankly, I think it's more that the Bills are overhyped and people really are underestimating the Dolphins. Not really that the Dolphins are at the level that everyone thought the Bills were. I just think no one in the AFC East right now is at that level. But it's always nice to see Buffalo struggle a little bit. And then they have a huge game against the Pats this Sunday. So that'll be really interesting. Kind of a win-win. If the Bills lose, yeah, it's a little bit nerve-wracking that the Patriots returned. They go 3-4 and they're sort of maybe finding themselves beating a good team. But hey, it's good that the Bills lost. It helps Miami, assuming Miami's able to take care of business, in terms of that AFC East picture. If the Bills win, well then, that's unfortunate in the long-term playoff picture. But in terms of the Patriots falling to 2-5, it might almost be worth it to miss the playoffs. And then maybe the best part, Houston fell to 1-6. Remember, Miami has Houston's first and second round picks. So they're going to have some really good picks, and they're not even going to be their own. They're going to be Houston's, and I really look forward to that. Right now, they're technically tied for the second overall pick amongst like 5 teams that are, around that level. So hopefully we can see them keep losing. I feel really bad for Deshaun Watson. He's seems like an amazing, man. Honestly, he does a lot, and I just don't think he deserves to be a part of such a garbage franchise, kind of like Darnold. But it's, if Houston's able to get some good coaching, and sort of establish, an identity on both sides of the ball, then I think Houston will be right back to, playoff contention in a matter of, a couple of years. Just they have star quarterback, and if you have a star quarterback, that's all you really need. But this year, there's some clear dysfunction, and that played right into the hands of the Dolphins, who every day that Laramie Tunsil trade and Chris Greer made, it just looks better and better. Two first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. You get, with one of them, you're able to acquire I believe that pick was Noah Igbenogany, if I'm correct. Yeah, that was Noah Igbenogany. So you were able to get a long-term, corner who, yes, he has struggled, but has also showed flashes of physical play and definitely, great athleticism. So I'm not really concerned about Noah Igbenogany. So that was a great pickup, for Tunsil on top of the second-round pick, which I believe they were able to acquire Robert Hunt with. And then on top of that, they're going to have probably a top 8 pick next year with Houston's atrocious play. So that'll be amazing. We can add a defensive playmaker, potentially another lineman, or trade it and acquire a litany of picks. And then again, they'll have another pick. So they'll once again have 4 picks in the top 50. So that's going to be great. It really looks good for where we can be positioned in this division going forward.
Hey, this fullback can't f with me.
And that'll do it for us today. Thank you guys so much for listening and tuning into this episode of the PhinsPod. Really hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever it is that you listen. The show itself is available on all platforms. We're working on trying to get it everywhere we can. Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Amazon Audio, as well as YouTube. Feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We posted a really, really dope highlight video last week, and we're going to start doing a lot more content on the channel. So please subscribe. And like I said, you'll be able to find the podcast episodes there as well. Always check out the site for news and content, phinspod.com, and follow us to continue the conversation on Twitter and Instagram at PhinsPod. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Tua's day. And until next time, stay safe and see you later.